My guest today is Lynn Crilly. She is a mental health champion, a counsellor, a film producer, and author of 4 books that give advice and hope to sufferers of mental illness and their families, including Hope with Eating Disorders, Hope with OCD, Hope with Depression, and Hope with Anxiety, all published by Hammersmith Health Books. A mother to grown-up twin daughters, Charlotte and Samantha, and grandma to Charlotte's 6-month-old twins, Georgia and Reggie. Lynn's passion for mental health awareness comes through the battles she faced with Samantha, who suffered with anorexia in her teens and obsessive-compulsive disorder in her early 20s. So welcome to the show, Lynn. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me on, and I'm good.
You're welcome. So because the show is called Unbroken, the first question that I always ask all of my guests is, what does that word unbroken mean to you?
When you asked me that this was going to be the introduction question, I thought about it, and I think unbroken to me means that you've realised that you are broken for whatever reason that might be unique to yourself, and that you're making waves to rectify that, mend yourself, find yourself, evolve, make yourself better, whatever. Everyone's different, so unbroken is different to everyone. So I think it's the actual recognizing that you are unbroken.
Oh, I love it. I mean, every week I ask a question, I always get a very different response, but I
Yes.
like that we're making the waves to rectify what we once were.
This was 18 years ago, and I think 18 years ago, when I see how different mental health, especially eating, any of the mental health issues, but eating disorders, then we didn't know anyone that had an eating disorder. And they weren't really, although that they were very much there, they weren't talked about. And I think you never think that it's going to be your child.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think that was what, but I think I was quite astute to it, because the way she was with certain foods that she suddenly didn't want or wouldn't have, or got upset at, like when we bought them both an ice cream, she cried her way through it. And I mean, and that's not normal. So yes, I think it was actually, that was made when I knew I had to do something about it.
And what did you do about it? Did you speak to her about it? Did you tell her your concerns? Or
Oh yes, no, we've always been really open. She was in denial, she was only just 13, didn't really see that there was a problem. So as soon as we got back, I went to our GP, and that was when the journey began. We spent our GP was brilliant, but we spent the next 4 years trawling both the private and NHS system to no avail. None of it was working for us. My family was falling apart. Sam was wasting away. At one point, we didn't know whether she would make it. And that was when I took the very unorthodox decision to discharge her from everything and do it myself. But we were very blessed. My GP stood by us, and the girls' school were very good as well, and amongst our family and friends.
So there's so many questions there, but at the beginning it just sounds like you were supported, but you were unsupported. Yes, you had a supportive GP, but it sounds like nobody really knew what to do. My middle daughter went through a short phase of just pre-eating disorder. Her elder sister found her diary, and she, through social media, we looked on her history, was able to Google lots of things to assist her in her eating disorder, and wear a certain thing to show other eating disorder survivors that they were an eating disorder as well. And
oh really?
It was shocking what I discovered on the internet. I really didn't know that this existed. They were saying that it wasn't an illness, it was a life choice. It was inspiration. She's now 25, 26, so it's also about 13 years ago, and it was all just, it was unbelievable how they had marketed it. It was really quite shocking. Thankfully, she's absolutely okay. She went to a teenage unit in Glasgow, where we live, and it really helped her to see that, she could have very easily just dived into it. But so you really work now to end the taboo, don't you, around mental illness, with your books and all the work that you do?
I think mental illness, sadly, now is the new pandemic. And the day that we went into lockdown, I said, I can remember saying to my husband that the mental illness and economic fallout from this is going to far outlive the pandemic. And sadly, the mental illness now, I've never known anything like it. I felt quite, not ashamed, but I felt like a failure as a mum when I realised what was going on with Sam. And sometimes even now I'll reflect and think, oh, if I'd done this or I'd done that.
So you think it was something to do that you have done to create this?
No, I did, but I don't now, because I realised that I brought two girls up exactly the same. They experienced exactly the same things at exactly the same time. One of them's had or has mental health issues and the other one doesn't. I think that it's different ways people cope with different things.
Absolutely. And I totally get it, because I thought, my daughter's now got an eating disorder because I had one. She's inherited my genes or something. Look what I've done to her. So I totally get how your head can go that way. But where is Sam up now with her eating disorder? How does that impact her, or it doesn't impact on her now?
The eating disorder has gone, but she does have OCD. And OCD, from what I've learned, attaches itself to a person's weakness, which is food. So it's more about colours, things matching, and it's very complex, as OCD is to every individual sufferer. But she manages. She is in charge of it, as opposed to it being in charge of her. And she's recognized her triggers and her limits, and she lives by them. I've got my Instagram, which I'm learning again. Charlotte used to do it before she had the babies, but they're very busy now. But I'm learning Instagram now, so I'm trying to make that more real rather than it being, I've got my goddaughters coming on board to help me to make it more real, so that I can be more compassionate with all the followers, etc., etc. But within my work, I work with the whole family. I don't just work with the sufferer. Okay. So, and it's very homely here. It's not clinical setting at all. But I just encourage people, like my books, I don't know any long words, so there's no long words in my book. So it's like, people say it's like sitting with me chatting, but there is no right or wrong way to do this. Everyone's unique. So recovery or working to recovery is unique to that person and their family or their carers.
Yeah, so I think there's no set path really, is
there?
No, there isn't.
It's whatever works for you guys. And I think that I know that we felt like we had to do it a certain way, and you have to meet certain deadlines and certain criteria and this and that before you reach this garden full of tulips, which doesn't exist.
Yes. So, and how do you look after yourself if you're busy looking after people all the time, and not just a client? You have whole families that you're looking after. How do you look after you?
That's a very good question, actually. I'm actually in the process of making sure that I take some self-care time, because I think I've worked all the way through the pandemic and with the films and that. But having said that, I have a very good husband who doesn't to this day get mental illness, but he's very supportive of everything that I do. I've got some lovely friends. I've got my girls. And yeah, I'm surrounded by people that care. My business partner in the films is lovely. We run a scaffold company. Our partner in that is very supportive. So, because I do cry a lot, but they've all got used to me now.
But I'm the same. I'm a former psychotherapist, and I would cry in my sessions, and if some supervisors might not find that was appropriate, but I think we're human beings at the end of the day.
Oh, that's really good. I cry in my session. I also have a very good life coach who, when I feel myself getting a little bit, because I find it very hard to say no to people, when I find myself a bit overloaded, I get in touch with him and he puts me back. No, I'm very blessed with the people that surround me. And Sam's, amongst other things, a scriptwriter and a poet. She's also a personal trainer. Okay. And she trains my clients.
Okay. So it's a team.
Yes, it's a family. And we've helped. And they only train with us. There's no exercise outside. They have to eat too. And then they build the body that they love. while I'm healing their mind, Sam builds their body. It gives the carer an insight into a sufferer's mind without having to read a whole book. The poems are very powerful, and her and her friend Meg wrote a script last year, and it was all a bit of fun at the time, A Day with OCD, which was filmed last September, over 3 days with a brilliant team, but none of us really knowing what we were doing. And everyone gave their time and love for nothing. And the film itself was premiered in London in May. It's been shortlisted for several film awards around the world, and Sam's been shortlisted for the Best Actress at the Las Vegas Film Awards. We haven't won any, but just to be shortlisted.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. So now they've written a script, A Day with Anxiety, and that's being filmed in October.
So I did watch the film today, which people can access on your website, and we'll put the link for your website in the show notes. And it's very, very clever, because it's a day with OCD, written by someone who has OCD, acted by someone with OCD, and she's kind of self-deprecating, isn't it? So she has this awareness that her mind is a bit manic at times, but yet she's able to still show people what it's like. So it hasn't stopped her in any way, even though she's aware that she's still doing this. And it was sad, you know, because this is what she's doing. This goes through her head constantly, but it was also really hopeful as well. There was many things going on in that. You must be kind of really proud that she's done this. What you're really saying is about being open and having conversations.
Yes, and don't be afraid to talk, but do it in a way that's not attacking, that let them know that it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. That's brilliant advice, and I'm delighted to hear that Samantha is in such a good place now, and I look forward to her next film, A Day of Anxiety. The first one was brilliant. It just really leaves me to thank you so much for coming on the show and
Thank
sharing.
you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you.